we'll start with public comment. Thank you, Parker. And seeing none, we'll move on to item number 3, roundtable discussion amongst council members. Does anyone have anything that they'd like to discuss? No? Nothing from Dave or Mike? Nothing here. Teresa?
I would just like to share that I received a, well, actually, I think it was the minutes from Allegan County, and Delora had inquired about the gypsy moth.
Oh.
Apparently, there has been several, they've received several requests for people to, that want them to control the gypsy moth. So they are going to try and get a program in place. The Conservation District, I believe, is the ones that's going to do it and try and get some type of program in place to control the gypsy moths or do something when they hatch again in the spring or when they lay eggs or whatever they do. So it has been looked at. So that was a cool thing that Delora had brought up. So
has anyone that you've talked to about that discussed? My concern with spraying is always that you're killing everything.
I do not know what the program's going to be, but I would guess that the Conservation Club is going to be very cautious.
Yeah.
Or, I don't know what was the club, Conservation District.
Okay.
So I would guess they know enough to be real cautious about that.
And Roger, when I had talked to Paul, because Paul had come in and done that presentation to us during a public comment period, he had said that they have a formula that is specifically for the larva of that moth. So, I mean, I can't say that,
Right.
definitively, but that's what he had
lightning bugs
mentioned.
too.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, we were infested with them. We have a couple of big oak trees, and they were just everywhere this summer/fall. Yeah, so I wouldn't hate getting rid of them. Yeah.
That's all I have. Thanks.
Delora, nothing from you. Bill?
Nothing from me.
I have two things. First of all, just as we're finishing one major project, kudos all around for that, by the way. Do we, as I recall from our agreement, the ground is supposed to be broken on the hotel by the end of this year. Is that correct?
That's correct. Our agreement, I think it was by 2023 that they have to, begin groundbreaking, or we can claim the property back with liquidated damages from the developer. So up to date, some information. They've received a letter of intent from the Michigan Economic Development Corporation to contribute. I think I shared this in an email with council. A significant amount of funding, just south of $1 million. It still is a $10 million project, so it's 10% coverage. I was in email communication with the hotel developer today. He circled back with me this afternoon. We are going to be hosting an invite-only investors meeting or potential investors meeting to come up with there's some gap funding that we still need. I've had some conversations with members of the Allegan community that are able to, be part of that funding raise. As I shared with council, I think in my email, the employee that was the lead on the project is no longer with that company. So I am not picking up slack, but becoming more vocal with the primary developer on securing those funds. I will probably be bringing to council at your last meeting in December, and we're going to talk about this at your study session in December, an amendment to that development agreement, maybe like a 6-month extension or something, just because it took us a while to get that state approval, and then, they are making they are making what I'm going to call paperwork progress. Yeah, they're getting their everything lined up before they can actually get in the ground.
Okay. Well, it's moving forward at least. We're not where we want to be, but
No.
at least there's things happening. Okay. And then another thing I wanted to just bring up with council so that we can begin to talk. I know I've talked with a couple of you. I would like to, if we can come to a consensus, for us to begin to direct staff on making, us making steps toward water being a human right in Allegan and not allowing water shutoffs. And figure out, I know there's other communities doing it. I know the state of Michigan is looking at this, that making this a state law. But I want, I don't know if that's gonna happen, and I want us to continue, or to move in that direction. So I don't know what your thoughts are on that. I think other communities that have done it, if someone doesn't pay their water bill, that, at the end of the year, that money gets put onto their taxes. But I just, people need water to live, and so for us to turn water off bothers me. So wanted to get your feedback on what you thought about that.
I'm very in support of that initiative, Roger. I know that Joel had mentioned he'd seen that, I think, on one of his link serves or whatever it is. Tracy's nodding her head over there, too. But that would be a conversation I'd really be interested in seeing take place.
Okay, good. And Dave, I know you and I had a conversation about it, and you seem to be in favor of that. Is that still the
Yeah,
case?
I am, and I think it's probably worth putting some urgency on that task. I know we've already gotten our policy that will put a tax lien on a house that owes at the end of the year. I think it happens sometime in June. So we've already got that piece in place. I'm not sure what would hold us back from just taking out those fees and the fees for the fees and the shut-offs and just having that, and that seems like enough to me. So I would be in support of moving on that pretty quickly. Because I know October we had 40 shut-offs, and I haven't seen the numbers yet for November, but that's a lot of households for our community.
Yeah. I agree.
Could I just ask real quick of Tracy? Tracy, how would you see that impacting budget? Like, if we have to put something on a tax roll and then we wait to receive that, is this something that could feasibly make rates increase to cover for those that are not?
Potentially, I mean, it's gonna be, I don't wanna say minimal, because it is a big chunk. What did Danielle tell us? It was like $13,000 a year.
Those are the fees. One thing, we're gonna have to look at the state law too, because I believe state law allows landlords to opt out of that. And so you won't be able to put that on taxes if it's a landlord. So if the landlord forces the tenant to put it in their name, and you don't do shut off, you don't do payments, you don't do deposits, you can run into where we won't be able to put some of those onto. So, I mean, there's a lot of,
Yeah.
And if you're not doing any penalties for anyone, there's a difference. I mean, I think we have to do the penalties for the late payments. The shut-offs are what are, I think, around 13,000 annually. That's not including, and I don't know, I can't remember what that is, like 40 or 50 grand for penalties and interest, but I still think we do that. But anything you take away is going to affect what our rates are gonna have to be.
I think the 40 houses even, I mean, that would be 4,000 just in a turn on and turn off fees, and then another, what is it, 1,200 for the
The 13,000 a
administrative.
year is what Danielle had given us for the past 2 years as an average. I mean,
But I didn't think we were allowed to do shut-offs the last 2 years, because there's that moratorium during the pandemic.
and that could affect that number and make it a little bit lower if we didn't do it some of those months, so we wouldn't have, well, we did charge for some of the months.
if the majority of council, I mean, right now, we've heard from 3 people. If the majority of council really wants us to go into this, this is something where we can, go through a pro and con discussion, or if there's a subcommittee that wants to meet with staff, they can have a discussion on this as well.
I'm in favor of seeing something worked out as well. So, if staff wanted to get more, I want to say solid numbers for us, what would happen if we just charge fees, if we don't, maybe dig into it and give us some figures, I would be in favor too.
Knowing that it might mean rate increases. Because anything you take away is gonna affect those numbers.
Well, I thought we would have a rate study in place already that I wouldn't anticipate us counting on having those shut-off fees as part of our rate
We do
planning.
budget for them though, because we have them every year. We have consistent numbers that we budget every year for those, so it would take those numbers out. I mean, because 10 to 50 or $60,000 is pretty significant in those two funds, especially water right now.
So this is something that staff can, put together a report on the impact of, not doing, waters are right, not doing shut-offs. How do we handle people who don't pay? And then if they're landlords and they have, a $7,000 water bill at the end of the year, and the landlord says, you can't put that on my property taxes. And the city, that's a loss that the city takes.
Yeah.
We can bring that stuff probably back to you in January. That's part of your strategic planning process.
And then it also, just so you keep it in your mind, is that it's gonna affect cash flow, because that's the cash we're not getting monthly.
And that was kind of my question. I didn't phrase it quite that way,
Yep.
but because you're not bringing in those funds in that given month, you have less for operations and everything like that, but I still would like to
Yeah.
see something.
Yeah, for fiscal year, the last fiscal year, we just finished 23. It was $11,400 was collected in delinquency fees, and those are your shut-offs, so.
How much?
11,400. That's the fee we add to the property when you get to the shut-off state.
For the
That's
whole-
just the $50 delinquency fee.
Yeah,
And that's for the whole fiscal year?
the whole fiscal
Oh,
year.
okay.
I thought the delinquency fee was at 5%.
No, that's just the penalties.
So I think part of the discussion, which we'll come back to, is the vernacular that we use, because, we have a penalty fee of 5%. So if you don't pay your bill on time, it's a 5% added. And then we have a delinquency fee, which we refer to commonly as the shut-off fee.
Right.
And I think that's
Turn
where-
on or turn off.
Or a turn-on, turn-off fee, which is because of non-payment, turn-on, turn-off. So we can go ahead and look into this. It seems like the majority of council shook their, I marked down 4 people. I got 5 now. And Mike's at 6, it looks like he's shaking his head yes. I don't know if that's peer pressure, if he really wants us to look at this, but yeah, we can look into this. But this is something we will need to look at, that state law that allows landlords to,
Yeah.
it's called a lien on the property. I forget exactly, a lien waiver or something like that
Yeah, I don't remember
is the state,
all the
is the
terms.
state term, I
Makes
believe.
sense if the tenant is paying the water bill,
Yeah.
that makes sense.
Well, that'll be good, just to have the information and
Yeah.
know what we're dealing with and how it will affect us.
My only recommendation is to bring it back in to you in January is we're going to that time of the year where staff is using up unused vacation time, and we won't have a full staff team to dedicate to, putting this stuff together till after the new year.
It may be a conversation just for, like you said, strategic planning day.
Yeah. Yep.
Maybe when Doug's there and Tracy's there with figure.
Well, I think, didn't we decide to do one of the days where we're just talking about the fees?
Yeah, fees later in the process. That's like in March. But I think you guys are going to want to have this discussion at the
Sooner than
beginning.
that.
Yeah, sooner than that, if I'm reading the room correctly.
Good discussion, Raj. Thank you, Mayor.
That's all I have, so if there's nothing else, we'll move on down to a presentation from Siegfried and Crandall for the fiscal year 2023 audit report.
All right, I'm going to invite Dan to the microphone. Dan Siegfried, sorry about that, Dan Veldhuizen. I always do that. Is with Siegfried Crandall. They're our auditors. He is going to go over the audit report for fiscal year 23, which just ended this past June 30th. So with that, Dan,
I'm just glad you didn't say Siegfried and Roy. I get that
Yeah.
like way too often.
I'm sure you do.
I really appreciate you inviting me to your meeting like you do every year, and especially to be in a study session like this so we can get into more details as opposed to your regular meeting when you have so many things on the agenda. It just ends up being a 2-minute conversation, so I appreciate that. I also appreciate the long-term relationship we have with the city. I think I started working with the city back in the 90s. So just to be in this building is a nice thing to see compared to what you used to have, and had a chance to drive around town before I came. So it made a lot of positive changes, that's for sure. And right in the middle of that, we'll talk about that a little bit with the audit report. I like to talk about a few main things when I get a chance to meet with your council, and those are the auditor communications. That's what you hired us to do. Make a few comments about your financial condition, and then give you the opportunity to ask any questions that you have. So I think you have that all in front of you electronically. I always start with the independent auditor's report. That's the page immediately after the table of contents. And as I said, that's what you hired us to do, to give an opinion on the financial statements. There are three key concepts I wanted to touch on here. First of all, the opinions. We start right away with talking about our opinion in the second paragraph, which says that the financial statements are presented fairly in all material respects. I won't read that word for word, but it's known as an unmodified opinion in our profession, or a clean report. The unfortunate thing I always have to bring up is that we didn't write this report for you specifically. It's created by the Audit Standards Board for every entity in the country that gets audited. So if you went to the Department of Treasury's website, you would see 2,000 reports that read word for word like this. So far too many people in the media say that if it's a clean report, everything must be fine, and that's not necessarily the truth. It's rarely the truth, as a matter of fact. Another key concept is management responsibilities that we talk about near the end of that first page. And it's important for me to communicate to you that ultimately management is responsible for this financial statement, as well as the internal controls or checks and balances over the transactions. So even though we prepared this booklet for you, it's ultimately Joel and Tracy's responsibility, I would say. And it's their responsibility to try to work towards that unmodified report. What's most important is for you to know how many corrections we needed to make to your internal reports to allow us to make that unmodified report. Give that unmodified opinion, I should say. And unfortunately, it's not bound in that document or part of it. It's a separate letter that I think you also have in your information. We refer to it as a SAS, or Statement on Audit Standards, section 114 and 115, if that's what's in your report. But the important thing that I want to talk about there is it's a relatively new requirement that we put in writing, about 6 to 8 things that come to our attention that we communicate to everyone. And the most important one is on the 3rd page of that letter.
Dan, real quick, you'll find that on page 5 of the PDF.
Okay.
I add that at the very front of the report. Thank you, Dan, sorry.
Good work, Joel. That is probably the most important thing. It's what we call a management letter. Sometimes we give recommendations, but the requirement for us is to tell you about internal controls and communicate any problems that we found. And so we define things like material weaknesses and significant deficiencies. They're all terrible sounding terms that I didn't come up with, so don't blame me, Tracy. But we do identify one material weakness that we combine related to all of the adjustments that we had to do. And those are listed in bullet points at the bottom of the 3rd page of that letter. And just to identify those, first of all, it's relatively few adjustments compared to a lot of the municipalities I work with. 3 of those items relate to capital assets, and management has made the decision to ask us to help be responsible for the capital asset lists. If you did that yourself, you almost need a part-time person to just track all of those things. So most of our clients, we have 120 governmental clients, and all but 4 or 5 have us take care of the capital assets. So things like capitalizing items and recording depreciation, that's a typical adjustment. We did have a few unique adjustments this year. The first one lists additional charges for services like your septage receiving charges. Those have always been recorded here, and it's just one of those things that got missed this year. But as part of the audit process, we added that revenue. And I know that Tracy felt terrible about the fact that she missed that adjustment. When we say record additional payables, there are literally thousands of payables recorded, even on a monthly basis. So all of those were recorded with the exception of some larger retainages related to the construction projects that were going on at the end of the year. Those often get missed. And then to reclassify bond proceeds, that was another unique one that just got missed in the year-end accrual. So there are literally dozens of year-end accrual adjustments that Tracy does a good job with, and her staff. A lot of cities in the townships that I work with just do cash basis internal reports, and then they expect us to come in, and we might have a list of 2 or 3 dozen adjustments that we make. So what I want to tell you with this, even though we call it a material weakness, is that we make relatively few adjustments here, and Tracy and her staff do a nice job. So those are the auditor communications. And I'd like to make a few comments about your financial condition. And there I'll point you to page 15 of the report. This is always a difficult area for an auditor because I think it's useful for me to point this out because I work with so many cities and can compare your financials to others. I know that Joel and Tracy can tell you in much greater detail information about all of these things I'm going to say, but I think it helps to have an outsider look at your financial statements and tell you where they think you are. So on page 15, it's a balance sheet or a picture at a point in time of your governmental funds, the funds that are financed by property taxes and state grants primarily. Your primary operating fund is to the left there, the general fund. And then you have the other governmental funds. The thing that a council member often wants to look at is what is our fund balance or the equity that we have available to spend. The general fund has a fund balance of $4.5 million. That I always look at as a percentage of expenditures. It represents 98% of your current year's expenditures. It's really quite high compared to where you've been before, but and very high compared to other cities and villages in the state that what I typically see is 10 to 20%. So 98% is unusual, and it's mostly because you're sitting on funding for these projects. The same is true in the major and local street. For example, local street, most cities I work with have virtually no fund balance in the local street fund balance, but you have 2.5 million. A lot of that is because your streetscape project just got started before the end of your fiscal year. So you had funding like $1.5 million of MEDC grant, $616,000 in loan proceeds that haven't been spent yet. So we'll talk about that a little bit more about what the effect might be for the next fiscal year. But I first wanted to touch on your proprietary funds, and those you can see on page 19. Page 19 is really a balance sheet, or we call it a statement of net position for your proprietary funds, which are sewer and water and the equipment fund. Those are known as proprietary funds because they're operated like a proprietary entity in full accrual basis accounting. So it's a little different basis of accounting. But the most important thing I think you should know about is near the bottom of that page, the second row from the bottom is labeled unrestricted net position. That's a lot like unassigned fund balance that we just looked at with the governmental funds. And here you have 2.7 million in sewer, 2.3 million in water, and almost $500,000 in the equipment fund. Going on to the next page, page 20, here you can see an activity statement, or what happened during your last fiscal year. It shows the total revenues, less expenses, and the changes in fund balance. If you look at the middle of the page, towards the middle, it identifies operating income or loss. The sewer fund is generating 1.1 million in operating income. The water fund has a small loss this year. I talked to Joel before the meeting, and he reminded me how you have a nice process in place where certain staff members and outsiders come through and look at rates. And you do that in a very economical manner. I've worked with other, mostly engineering firms that do that service, and they might charge you $15,000 to $20,000. So the way you're doing that with your staff and an outside service is very economical. And it looks like you're setting rates in such a way that you're covering the costs. So that's a good thing. But again, you always want to look at unrestricted net position, not the $25 million of net position, because that includes a lot of capital assets. So now going back to those fund equity numbers, they all seem really high and very healthy. So I could just stop right there and say, things are great at June 30. But it's really important to look at what happened in the subsequent period, I think. And I've actually had some time to talk to Tracy about that. I think later on in your regular meeting, you're going to approve some budget amendments for the fourth quarter last year, which are already built into the audit, and in your first quarter. So what I have seen and looked at last week and some today is that with all of those projections, fund balances are going to go down in each of your funds, of course, but they're all going to remain at a fairly healthy level as long as the projections that are in place come true. I was kind of worried about the street funds and the water fund, to be honest, with what was going on, but based on everything that Joel and Tracy showed me, things should be in a pretty good position after the end of your projects. So she'll be showing you more of that detail later on. I sometimes hesitate to talk about those things because we've only audited through June 30. But given what I've seen here and what I've looked at, I think it's really important that you know that or comfortable with where things will be next year at this time. So I can tell you that it's sometimes difficult with all of the numbers that Tracy gives you. The reports you look at are just going to be overwhelming. The average person can handle 6 numbers on a piece of paper, and when you look at this document, it's just overwhelming for most people, except for strange people like Tracy and I that kind of love all these numbers. But Tracy, I'm confident, can explain to you the adjustments and why. They're pretty substantial adjustments, but she has a good explanation for each of those. So that's enough comments about the financial conditions. There are just a couple of things I wanted to point out too in the notes and elsewhere. A positive statement would be related to note number 2 on page 29. Starting on page 27 or so, there's a lot of notes to the financial statements. Those provide a lot of detail about the numbers in the financial statements, and it's important to read. I won't go through all of those, but I'll just identify a couple key things for you. Note number 2, we make a statement that there were no reportable budget variances during the year. That's unusual. It's kind of fun for me to see that because 90% of the time there are some budget variances. That means somebody like Tracy is watching those and making amendments very carefully, more so than maybe other places. So that's a very positive comment to make. Just one other thing. On page 50 of the report, again, there is an awful lot of information about your defined benefit pension plan for the police officers for the last 10 years. I don't know if you all have that in front of you, but just to summarize that funding position, that's often what we talk about when we look at defined benefit plans, how you have so much in liabilities, $8.2 million, how much of that is funded? You've always been around 70% funding, which is an adequate number. It went down to 61%. That's an important number to know because it went down because MERS lost some money on their investments this past year, almost $600,000. That's the main reason. That wasn't your fault, anybody's fault, but that's the reason why the funding percentage went down, but it's above 60%, which a relatively new state law says you have to be above that or else you have to put a plan in place, maybe make more contributions to increase that. Another interesting thing that Joel pointed out to me was 10 years ago you were making benefit payments of $125,000. Now you're at $350,000. So that just shows you where you've gone over the last 10 years, doubled that contribution. More than doubled. But that trend is only going to increase. So that's an area you probably need to focus on and have more contributions as well. So I could probably spend another hour talking about your financial statements, but I'd rather have you have the opportunity to ask me any questions that you might have. Happy to answer them now or throughout the year. Glad to do that. Enjoy doing that. So that's all I have.
Does anyone have any questions for Dan? I was expecting that we were gonna have this onslaught.
Well, I guess I can ask one question just about the net unrestricted position. It looked like it was about 8 million total in unrestricted funds across all our funds. Is that accurate? Can you just speak a little bit about that, or point us to the page where we might find that?
That's an excellent question, Dave. That's something, the way that Tracy presents that information, that I don't see very often. I honestly don't know that number because we focus on the funds and the types of funds. So like I mentioned, how the governmental funds are a different basis of accounting. There you have $10.8 million in fund equity.
In
Just
cash,
the
like,
governmental funds. Wouldn't necessarily be cash. Fund balance is cash and other current assets, less current liabilities. So fund balance is $10.8 million for the governmental funds. Now that includes $2.5 million in your capital improvement sinking fund that you don't have access to right away. But, so I tend not to look at a total for the city, and there, well, actually, let's see, I rarely get to the government-wide statements. But if you look at page 13, Dave, page 13 is a statement of net position for the city as a whole. And it's an effort to try to combine all of your funds into one entity like a business would. So if you look at that, the column on the left is your governmental activities. There you have unrestricted net position of over $3 million and $5 million for business type activities. So from an audit perspective, I would say you have unrestricted net position of a little over 8 million, like you just said. So I think that's a number I could agree with.
okay, great, thank you.
So Dan, you all are working with a lot of different municipalities. Would you say that our practices are pretty sound here in Allegan? Are we doing the things that we need to be doing? And I guess when I say we, I mean, is Tracy doing what she needs to be doing? Since she's the one that the bulk of this falls on, are we doing what we should be doing?
That's an excellent question. I don't think anybody's ever said it to me in such a way. It's always difficult to compare one city to another. In every audit, we evaluate internal controls, or like you say, what should we be doing? If Tracy wasn't reconciling cash accurately and timely, that would be our number one concern, because if you don't get cash balances right, then you can't really trust anything else. Unfortunately, with the clients that we do have to report that once in a while. So that's always our primary concern. And if there's other significant internal control problems, we would point that out and present that as a material weakness, just like I talked about those adjustments. So if you're not doing things like reconciling other assets, that would be a material weakness. So we didn't report any of those things. I would say Tracy and her staff do a nice job with all of the things that you really should be doing. You should be focused on cash reconciliations. If you can, record all the accruals at the end of the year, and we pointed out with that list of bullet points some of the things that were missed, but they were relatively few. So overall, I would say the staff does do a very nice job, and probably, if I had to compare, better than most of the municipalities, actually in the top quarter of municipalities that I work with, for sure.
Great, thanks. Delora?
I know we've talked about this before, and Teresa has met with Tracy and seen the large number of spreadsheets and our system. Is there a different system, or have we talked about getting a different system where it would be a little bit easier to track some of this information? Or are we pretty comfortable
As
with?
far as like the depreciation and capital things,
Yeah, I'm being able just to pull numbers much more quickly than having to go through so many steps.
we have looked at a few different things, the cost benefit of it. I think we've discussed that before in the past too, that it's, I mean,
Tracy, I would respond that the software you use, BSNA, is, I'm not a software salesman, I would never promote one over another, but it's really the only one you have available to you. It's really quite expensive. You don't want to use something like QuickBooks or other things like that that's really cheap, but we, as a firm, we used to have a IT department, and we actually did a nationwide search for the best software programs and helped sell and service a couple of those for a while. Those no longer exist, and when people ask us for a recommendation, we just say BSNA is your best alternative. So I can see why it's frustrating when you're trying to get this information, because sometimes there's just way too much in the reports in BSNA. So I really like it when people like Tracy take the information out and try to give you a one-page report like she does. There's a lot of detail there, but actually just today I spent some time looking at her workbook that seems very accurate to me. It's always troubling when you pull from software to an Excel sheet. So you want to be able to test those numbers, but she does a very nice job of doing that and trying to synthesize it, if you will, so it's understandable in one page as opposed to 62 pages of revenue and expenditure reports. So, short answer to your question is I'm not sure there's another alternative out there.
I did have some questions on the revenue and expenditure report, but I know that's not your report. Could I ask some of those now, just to kind of get a sense of, because part of where I was going with I want to understand how much liquid assets we have, is I want to do, like I was saying last meeting, and kind of understand, as we make budget adjustments, how close are we getting to spending the most we can? And so I'm looking at the revenue and expenditure report, and I see.
So can I just ask real quick, is this something that Dave can weigh in on, or I'm sorry, Dan can weigh in on? Because I don't want to waste his time. Is that something that we should talk about?
He might be able to. I mean, I'm looking at the net funds down at the bottom of that revenue and expenditure report, and they're much higher than that 8 million. So if you go to like the very last page, you can see.
Very last page of what?
Of the study session packet.
Of the very last page?
Yeah, 154 of 154. But I'm looking at the columns on that last page, and I see there's the end balance from last year, and that end balance looks at that time at 36 million. And so I'm assuming that number is like accrued capital or something else that but that one almost doesn't matter as much as the one that, as you move over, you see original budget for this year and then amended budget. And there's, in parentheses there, the 4.8 million. And that seems to represent like budgeted deficit, like expenditures greater than revenue. So I'm trying to understand now, as we're projecting out, we've got 8 million roughly that we can spend. We got 4.8 million that, and that makes sense for this year because there's still some big projects coming over. Am I understanding that correctly? Is that 8 million going to go down to what would be 3.2 million?
With budget adjustments?
Are you looking at the first quarter budget adjustment sheet? Because I just have my spreadsheets open.
He's looking at the revenue and expenditure report in the packet.
Yeah, and I don't
So
have the
you're gonna wanna
packet.
jump on the city website and download the packet. Or go to the, Michaela can help you by going to the S drive.
Okay, so Dan, maybe you can help me explain this part. The 36 million that he has, it includes, because the method of accounting, it doesn't, the proprietary funds are at these numbers. So it's not doing the unrestricted amounts, it's not, so for like water and sewer, it's not the, or even motor vehicle pool, this is before the,
It's not an accrual basis.
expenses, there's no
Right.
depreciation or anything like that.
Right.
If I can help, Dave. That's more of a cash basis report, so that's a great question. Like when I showed you in the audited financial statement, $8 million was the net position. If I compare that to the summary one-page sheet that Tracy has in the packet, the audited numbers that are on here come down to 16 million. But there's a number of adjustments, accrual adjustments that we take into account to get down to that 8 million. Like, there's no debt in the governmental funds here. So it's a fairly complicated exercise to get from that number to the numbers that are on here. I think the way to summarize that is what Tracy's trying to do is really get you close to cash basis and tell you what you have available. Does that help?
Yeah, so available in cash, I've got, as a city, 8 million right now,
At that point in time,
in June.
point in time.
I would say, if you're looking at it that way, on a fund-by-fund basis, this report shows $16 million in equity, and that is unassigned fund balance as well as unrestricted net position. So I would say you're closer to $16 million in cash available.
That's, you're looking at a fourth quarter report that's in our regular agenda?
It's actually, this one is actually the first quarter, the one with the first quarter budget amendments.
Oh, okay.
That's the one I was looking at earlier today.
So that would be July, August, September, and we ended June with 8 million, now we're ending September with 16 million?
I would say your available net position was 16 million, according to this report, and that does it by fund. It agrees to the audit report.
Okay.
And then the interesting thing to me to see was with the budget amendments that you will be approving tonight, you're gonna end up with net position of about 11.5 million. So that is a $5 million reduction in the cash that you have available to spend.
In the first quarter of this fiscal year?
That's a projection based on the whole next fiscal year, I would
Okay.
say. It includes the budget amendments, but the budget is just, a financial plan as opposed to actual activity. So what I would say when you're coming down to 11.5 million, that's a projection. And that's, as opposed to looking at the revenue and expenditure report, I think this is a more useful report. Tracy's, actually, the heading is cut off of here, fund summary or something like that.
Yeah,
That report, to me, is a useful report because it has prior year actual activity that agrees to the audit, and then it has your current year original and amended budgets.
Okay. Yeah, so I think you're talking about what's gonna be in our regular agenda, our regular meeting agenda, and I did look at that one too. And the thing that stood out to me there was, when I go back to the budget for this year, we're projecting to go to like 60,000 in the water fund, but it's much higher in the projections in that first quarter. Can you speak to what the changes were there?
so you're saying from the revenue and expenditure report to,
No, now I'm talking budget to the report that's in our regular agenda, our regular meeting agenda.
the original budget?
So the original budget for the water fund projected to go to 60,000. But now if I look at this first quarter summary report, under proprietary funds, it's got the water fund ending at 1.2 million, and there's some big adjustments too. It looks like maybe another 2 million in revenue, but then another 2.6 in expenses. And so I'm trying to understand, we're gonna be making adjustments for revenue and expenses, and that's gonna add another 600,000 in liability. But then we're getting a different budget, a different projection than what was in the budget. So why do I see a difference between the projection in this summary versus what was in the budget?
I would say it's multiple things. It's a mixture of what we originally had budgeted, things that have been approved from after the budget was adopted till now, and things rolled over from 2023 to 2024. So it's several things that are broken down on the individual adjustments on the other pages.
So
And I
maybe
can-
this is something that Tracy could pull some of that information together and you guys can discuss it maybe outside of the meeting, just so we're not getting too far into the weeds on budget stuff, because I don't know that.
Yeah, because on the other
That's what we're
sheets on
supposed
those first quarter and fourth quarter budget adjustments, it has, the adjustments of personnel and operating and capital expenditures. And I have, like Dan said, I have several other reports I could print out, but that's so much detail, and it's all things that have been approved or adjusted from the prior year, so.
I know it's got to be hard to pull all those numbers together on the spot, so is that okay if Tracy pulls that together and,
Yeah, I mean, if there's other numbers
You can
that I
answer
should
those
be
questions.
looking at, is there,
Dave, if you want to go ahead and just shoot Tracy and I an email on your availability, and we can set up a meeting in our office to go over those, numbers,
Yeah, 'cause
as
I can show
whatever
you-
questions you might have
I can
regarding
show
this.
you every line item that was adjusted and explain what the adjustment was for.
I see some of the big ones, there's like a bunch of new revenue that came in. Could I just kind of get like okay, so there's another 2 million coming for sewer, another 2 million coming for water? What are those
Revenue?
ones? Yeah,
Yeah, so the majority of those things are from, like for the sewer is the projects that are reimbursable loans. So we got, the GOLT bond is the money that we got up front for the local streets, major streets, water and no, not water, just sewer. No, just water. And then we got the Booker funds, that's a reimbursable 3 million. And then we've got another $2 million bond that was reimbursable. So some of those things, we didn't expend the money out, so we didn't get all of that money in 2023. So it's the Booker funds and the downtown streetscape funds that weren't, all the money wasn't given to us all up front.
okay.
So those amounts were transferred over into this year because they weren't budgeted in this year at all, if you look at the original budget. So they were transferred over because we'll be receiving that money this year and then expending that money back out.
And you said you've got like specific line items that you can send me on these?
Yep.
I could see like, here's what fourth quarter was, here's what first
Yep.
quarter was. Okay, that would be very helpful.
Yep.
And then if, just for my own, because I'm looking at all this information in the packets, what would you say is the most accurate projection for the end of the year at this point? Where can I go to find that?
This first quarter budget adjustment is going to be the most up-to-date information I have right now.
And that's the one-page summary that Dan was just talking about? I'm
Yeah,
looking
that
at
whole section of first quarter budget
First quarter
adjustment.
summary
Those,
in our packet.
there's like 4 or 5 page, well, that also has investments too, but yeah, that last page of that, actually, I think I put that as the first page
okay.
of the first quarter budget adjustments. That's probably the easiest page to look at.
the first quarter summary page of the,
It's called, yes,
okay, thank you.
yep.
Thanks, Tracy. Delora, you have something?
I just had a quick question, Tracy. So we often get these requests for budget adjustments. Is there a mechanism for you in your office when you're getting these requests that says, we cannot do this, we do not have enough funds available, I'm not going to approve that? Like, is there a point where you say, I'm not going to bring this forward? at what point do you kind of make that decision of whether it's something you will bring forward or not? Is there like a cutoff with a fund balance? Is there, or you just know like what state we are in financially and whether or not we can afford to do that?
So historically, we've been, the years that we don't have major projects, we're usually good with our fund balances, and if it's over $10,000, then that's when I start looking at the numbers. I don't know that anything that has come up, I feel like we have a good system in place for all of that. It's more of a, council decision that certain things get approved in that. I mean, I'm
So
not,
Delora, if your question is, when do we decide to bring a purchase order to council that requires a budget adjustment? Because you see those in your reports. That conversation, I mean, it's constant communication amongst department heads. So it's usually Doug Swears or Doug Codsman or Jay Gibson, one of the department heads saying, hey, I need to buy X. It's not in my budget. And that's when Tracy says, okay, we can, we have enough fund balance to bring this forward to council.
or that's where I say too, what line items are you going to reduce? That,
Make that
I
happen.
don't think has ever happened in my history here. It's always just been, we'll take it from fund balance.
But you wouldn't bring forward something that you didn't feel like,
Correct.
something that we could absorb financially.
Right.
So you're looking with department heads prior to approving it at your level and bringing it forward.
Yes.
All right, any more questions for Dan? Dan, thank you
for your
very
time.
much. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Dan.
All right, so moving on to item number 5, review of downtown refuse program fees. Joel?
Yeah, very quickly, I just want to bring this to council because we are asking you to approve the fee schedule via resolution during a regular meeting. As we have discussed throughout the past few years, that we're going to do this downtown refuse pickup, and we're going to do it through a user fee system to help fund it instead of just a straight assessment on parcels. This was the fee schedule that was developed in consultation with a variety of people, including downtown business owners. The way the program is going to work is everyone will pay a ready-to-serve fee of $6.50, and then depending on your use, you will pay anywhere from $9.75 up to $26 per month to help fund our downtown refuse. In your report, you got an example from me. If you are a 2-story building with a retail store and 2 full-time employees on the first floor and 2 apartments on the second floor, your monthly bill would be $45.50 for those 3 different uses. I will say we've had 2 public open houses on this issue. We've already sent out the invoices already to all the property owners to give them a head start to, I would use, the word I would use is a contest. If we said you have 2 apartments, like I only have 1 apartment above my building, or we say you have 7 employees, and they say, dude, I only have 3. So those have already gone out. They've been well received. People have reached out to us already. Again, this is just the fee schedule that we're sharing.
I had a couple questions, Joel.
Yes.
When I showed the bill that I received to 5 different people, they came up with less money than what I was billed.
Sure. Okay.
Why?
I don't have your bill, so I
Well-
can't answer that.
I think I know what's happened. They're charging me for a retail store, and they're charging me for a retail appliance furniture store. They're double dipping me.
Okay, so, and then the letter that, so we're going to Tom, right? He's the taxpayer on that?
Correct.
So Tom should have received that letter as the owner of the store.
He did.
And in that letter, it said, please contact the city if you think we have an error on your property. I don't have access to MR to pull up the exact invoice that was sent to you, but that is something that we can easily look into tomorrow.
He was supposed to have given that to me, but he didn't. And do we have to call it a ready-to-serve fee? Sounds
That
like we're having
is-
a pizza party.
Yep, I understand. That is a common vernacular that we use for any kind of utility, and we're viewing this service as a utility that we provide.
What's it for? It's basically for the containers around town, correct?
Correct. The program is there, ready to use it.
Why don't you call it container street disposal fee? Something better enumerated.
Yeah,
instead of
I believe
ready
in
to
I
serve.
believe in the ordinance that was adopted by council, it uses the word ready to serve, if I'm not
Was it? I
mistaken.
don't know.
Yeah, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
But yeah, have Tom reach out to us tomorrow, and we're gonna let him
Tom
talk.
did, and he was told that that's your bill.
Who did he reach out to?
Thought you.
No, I have not talked to Tom.
Well, then, he's probably telling me a story then.
Yeah, I haven't talked to Tom in a week or so, so. I'll gladly talk to him. I know, one property owner that did reach out to us was, Michelle Liggett, and she mentioned that we got two of her properties, confused on which one had two apartments.
As far as we are concerned, this is a godsend. We were paying $260 a month. Even at the 71, it's a whole lot less money.
Yeah. We believe through this program, not everyone has that kind of result.
No.
But through this program, we believe an economy of scale is being reached, and the trash cans are now gonna be picked up 3 times a week instead of once or twice a week. It's gonna really clean up the streets. But yeah, again, have Tom reach out to us tomorrow. I'm in the office first thing.
Joel, could you explain to me the opt-out part? I didn't understand, kind of got lost reading who
Sure.
could and who
Yeah,
couldn't.
so
Thank you.
I believe it's in the ordinance that was approved by council is where the opt-out part is. And if you can have trash service on your own property, and they can access your dumpsters on your own property without you wheeling it out to a curb, then you can opt out of the usage fee, but not the ready to serve. For an example, Shanedorf Brewing. No one's opted out so far, but Shanedorf Brewing has dumpsters on their own parcel that they don't roll them out to the street. The dump truck or the garbage truck does access it by going through a city-owned parking lot, but that is fully on their own property. Perigo outlet store, I believe, keeps their trash cans inside their building, and they have a driveway off Water Street that it drives down into like a loading dock to access their trash. So that's another one. And then we have one other property owner on Water Street that has a single 96-gallon that's right behind the sidewalk shielded. And they would have to work with their operator, the service that they contract with to say, yeah, we'll be willing to walk across the street or across the sidewalk, grab it and take it to the truck. But the majority of the properties downtown, their trash receptacles are on public property, whether it be in a parking lot or on a sidewalk. So that's how you could opt out.
My concern was when you said, excuse me, keep them on your own property, that we would still have people say, well, my Herbie Kirby's sitting right here on my own.
Yeah.
And we would be defeating the purpose of the riverfront. Okay, great, thank you.
Any more questions on this or observations? Okay,
I'll just say it's been a long time coming.
it's been a long time coming.
So good to see that it's getting implemented and.
And so during the regular meeting, you will be approving by resolution this fee structure for the calendar year 2024. And the way the program's going to work is every November, we're going to reassess, and fees go up and down during that time. So this will be the one time, unfortunately, Tracy, that we'll be changing fees mid-year as opposed to in the budget on the regular process.
All right. Item number 6, discussion regarding a grant for improvements to the Allegan City Dam. Joel?
Sure. So real quick, I just wanted to bring to council's attention what's happening with the city-owned dam downtown. It was brought to we were made aware of a grant through Eagle to do some we were made aware of a grant through Eagle that cities can, or dam owners can apply for to make either improvements to dams or remove dams. As you are aware, we have a dam that we own that we need to make some improvements to. Some of this includes addressing the catwalk on the main dam, addressing the stop logs on the main dam, looking at some opportunities to deal with engineering services for the right powerhouse head gate and powerhouse inspection. What we are looking to do is to apply for this grant. It requires a 10% local match. The process is this. The pre-application is due December 4th. If we pass the pre-application, we can submit what's called a full application by January 31st. And then at that time, we will know after the full application if we've been, approved for funding from Eagle. So we're going to go ahead and submit the pre-application and see where we get going with that. And then the full application process, if we get by the pre-application process, we'll go on to the full application, because at that time, we'll have better figures and numbers on what it would cost for us. We did have a conversation with people at Eagle about applying to remove the powerhouse. They shied away from that conversation because of the contaminated soils in the mill pond area. And they go, this program is not designed to address contaminated soils, in the riverbeds. So they directed us to going after the improvements for the catwalk and the stop logs and addressing the right powerhouse gate at the powerhouse. Any questions on this?
Thank you for following up on these items. I think those are really important.
Yeah.
Do we,
I have a little bit of concern about throwing good money after bad money. I mean, if in 3 years we hear something big on the dam, it's like, oh, but it's only 10% of our local money going into this project.
yeah, and these were the top items. Talking to the engineer from the state, it sounded like those were the top items that caused us to be in poor condition. So I think this is the right investment. Do we know what the rough cost was? I mean, we must have gotten something for the pre-application.
We have a phone call out to Lawson Fisher, which is like our dam engineer that we've used in years past here at the City of Allegan, prior to me coming here. They are working on some high-level budget numbers for us, because we need that for our pre-application, but we haven't heard anything back from them since we put that request in. So the answer is no.
Okay.
That's something we need to know when 10% of 100 is $10, 10% of $1 million is $100,000. So yeah, we need to know that number, and Tracy really needs to know that number.
Any other questions? All right. Item number 7, review of September and October revenue and expenditure reports. Tracy? Joel?
So I'm going to just steal this one from you, because we kind of touched on this during the review from the audit. I'm going to reiterate to all council members, we are an open book. Feel free to email us with specific questions and follow-up questions. Tracy gets a lot of emails from me, or me yelling for her around the doorway, saying, come in here. We met with council member Galloway probably 2 years ago when she had a list of, just a list of questions. And it was a long meeting. I think it was over 2 hours just going through that kind of stuff. We're willing to do it. And then we can talk about the different methods of accounting and, so forth. So unless council has some specific questions on what you see in here, the only thing I would just remind you, this is a snapshot of where we were at the end of September for the different departments, and a snapshot of where we are at the end of October. And tonight, if you went through your council report for the first quarter budget adjustments, that's a snapshot of where we are for the budget adjustments that we need to make that council's approved already.
Just one specific question on those budget adjustments in here. So I see from original budget to amended budget, it looks like total expenditures went up by 10 million or 9.5 million on this. Is that all like budget adjustments we approve, or what does that number mean?
So are you looking at the revenue and expenditure reports or the
You're looking
budget
at the first
adjustments?
quarter budget adjustments, right?
We're talking about revenue and expenditure report, that,
Yeah.
again, that last page on the study session packet.
Yep. So the September revenue and expenditure report should match our first quarter budget adjustments report.
So there should be another 10 million in expenses in that first quarter budget adjustment.
They should match. I mean, it should be, what I'm gonna ask you guys to approve at council tonight is the first quarter budget adjustments, which are things that have been brought to you from July 1st until now, or like the first part of November for that first quarter, or things that were transferred over from 2023 to this current fiscal year. And I'll send you the list of exactly what those things are, but those reports should be the same for original budget and amended budget.
But that, I mean, that's a real number, like I should see 10 million in expenses, here's what each of them were. I should be able to figure that out based off numbers you send to me.
Yep.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Yep.
All right, item number 8, review of council agenda. Were there any changes that need to be made to tonight's agenda? I know we will need a motion to excuse Mayor Pro Tem Hance. We'll do that at the meeting. No?
We have a second page?
Second page for the,
For the agenda, is that what you're talking about?
item 11.2B. No, is that, where-
What's the question
are
exactly?
we missing a page in the agenda, I guess is what, and what's been printed out here?
No. Okay, but in the packet that went out, it did not.
Yeah,
Okay.
our electronic packet.
Michaela will go back, we will reprint the agendas for you. Sorry about
catch,
that.
Great. All right. So, if there's nothing else, and we'll adjourn the study session, and we will reconvene for our regular session at 7 PM. 7 o'clock. We'll call the meeting to order. Let me get a roll call,
Sure.
please.
Councilmember Redding.
Here.
Councilmember Zeter.
Present.
Councilmember Morgan. Councilmember Andrus.
Here.
Councilmember Galloway.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Hands. And Mayor Byrd.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Excellent.
I'd like a motion to excuse Mayor Pro Tem Hans.
Support.
It has been moved and supported. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed, say nay. Motion passes. If we would, anyone who would like, you can stand with us and say the Pledge of Allegiance. All right, item number 4, approval of agenda. 4A, approval of the regular council meeting agenda for November 27th, 2023.
I make a motion, we approve it.
Support.
It has been moved and supported. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passes. 5A, approval of study session minutes, meeting minutes from November 13th, 2023 council meeting. Any corrections? Can I get a motion?
I make a motion that we approve the study session minutes.
I'll support.
It has been moved and supported. All in favor, say aye. Opposed, say nay. Motion passes. 5B, approval of regular meeting minutes from November 13th, 2023 council meeting.
Make a motion to approve.
A second.
It has been moved and supported. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Excellent. We're down to item 8A, second reading and public hearing and adoption for Ordinance 516 to amend chapters 19, 20, and 22 of the City of Allegan Code of Ordinances. Joel?
Thank you, Mayor. This evening, you are holding a public hearing and then adopting Ordinance 516, which will amend Chapter 19, which is our peddlers, solicitors, and transient merchant ordinance, Chapter 20, which is our planning commission ordinance, and Chapter 22, which is our sales ordinance. In your packets, you received a copy of the summary for the changes to each one. Chapter 19 is going to clarify that ice cream trucks and other similar vehicles are not in violation of the city's peddler regulations when they play music for limited durations in a given location during regular daytime hours. Chapter 20 replaces language requiring the planning commission to make appropriation requests by a certain date each year with more flexible language, allowing them to be made from time to time as needed. And then in the interest of brevity of that ordinance, we are referencing the State Planning Enabling Act, where the planning commission shall have the same powers and duties as set forth by state statute and applicable city ordinances. And then Chapter 22, which is sales, eliminates a prohibition that residential sales last for no more than 72 hours. Eliminates the requirement for the city council approval of residential sales. Increase the limit on residential sales in a calendar year from 2 to 6. Eliminates a provision that allowed family members who live in separate from one another to conduct a residential sale. And clarify language about what can and can't be sold at a residential sale, stating no person, firm, corporation, or organization other than the homeowner or occupant shall conduct a residential sale, and no merchandise of any nature shall be brought in from any other source to supplement such sale. These have been discussed by the subcommittee looking at ordinances. This has been reviewed and written by our city attorney, and you had a first reading at your previous meeting. So tonight is the public hearing, and then a recommendation that you adopt ordinance 516. And
this does require a public hearing, so we're going to open the public hearing for ordinance 516 rather, at 7:05. So if anyone would like to speak on ordinance 516. Seeing none, I will close the public hearing at 7:05. And can I get a motion?
I'll make a motion to adopt ordinance 516 to amend chapters 19, 20, and 22.
No support?
It has been moved and supported. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Oh, I guess
Nay.
it has, motion has passed. And now, we're down to item number 9, public comment. If you have public comment for things not on the agenda, you can step to the podium, state your name and address for the record, and you'll have 3 minutes.
Brett Menwar, 247 North Street. I was just gonna hand this to you, I've only got one copy. I highlighted just one paragraph there about what the engineer's report on was on the trestle bridge. And it kind of gives you a path forward there with monitoring it and possibly reopening it to pedestrian traffic during the monitoring process. So, but I don't know if you wanted to pass that around, they see that one section I highlighted, but I guess that's, it sounds like it was already talked about, so I guess that's all I've got.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else for public comment?
We already seen that report, I think, a couple years ago, actually.
First of all, my name is Ron Jones. I don't think I really have to even say who I am, but I will. And Mike, I meant to tell you 2 months ago, thanks for at least putting this to a vote, even though it got turned down. I got sidetracked when I got called a liar and everything else, and I have no reason to lie to nobody on this committee, okay? This is personal. I was also asked would I tone down the personal assaults. I said, it's personal to me because, just like I said, my powers were turned on in my name without my permission. So you guys think it's only about the RTS fees. And when I'm thinking about it, Mayor, Acting Mayor, I need a copy of that letter that you so eloquently read in here 2 weeks ago, please. Sent to my address, mailed. Don't send a certified letter like, I said I will not make any personal attacks, so don't send it certified letter like he does, because I'm not gonna waste my time and gas and go get it. Just like I get my bill every day or every month, I will get that letter out of my mailbox where I can walk to it in my boxer shorts, where I don't have to spend my gas to come down here to this post office. That's why I would never accept a letter. Now, once again, I was asked by a council member not to have any personal attacks. It's kind of hard because number one, I've had the police called on me twice by him. You guys went in the back room and wrote a letter up because of him, and he's a liar. Once again, allegedly, Joe Nye has sexual harassment allegations. All you gotta do is look in the office. Think about it. I don't lie to you. I don't have to. You guys may not like the way I say things to you. Fine, granted. You guys want to act like Jim Crow? I picked some cotton so you guys that don't know what cotton looks like. This is what real cotton
Mr. Jones, please go back to the podium.
I will, but you guys act like Jim Crow. Please just look at this, because you guys can't tell me how to talk to you. Because I don't talk to you the way that you want me to. Don't mean I'm no different, no worse than you are. I will step back because you asked me, all right? But you want to act like Jim Crow? I picked this because I wanted to. I don't have to pick cotton anymore. Nobody else does. It's personal to me, just like I just said. This idea about this clock, actually chief of police where he got it from. He got it from me. All right? You guys got how many people right now have shut-off notices? Why? Because the RTS fees. People can't pay the RTS fees and their water bills. I mean, you guys, I know so much about you because you brought me into this. You guys need to think about it. Right is right, wrong is wrong. Today, I choose not to use the personal attacks. But what I tell you is the truth. I don't have to lie to you. I didn't even lie with the joke that you guys didn't like. If you've been in college or been married, you'll find out I didn't lie. You may not like what I said, finding Danny. I don't like what's happening to me personally. Did nobody say thank you for my service after I brought the picture in because I don't stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? To me, liberty and justice is not for everyone. I'm a black man. I've seen every type of prison it is. Bill Morgan mentions, drop names. He doesn't know my mom. He's never been in my mom's house. He doesn't know anything about me. But he has the right to speak on me. You guys don't have to do that. You guys need to think about what you're doing to people. And I appreciate you letting me go over. Because, see, the police is not here, and that's probably a good thing, too, because I had a few more words for him. But you guys need to think about what's going on with this RTS mess. It's not about that. It's about my identity being stolen by Danielle.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Item 11A.
You got someone else coming.
Oh, I'm sorry.
All right, slow.
I didn't see you coming.
My name is Martha L., and I have some conditions. I live at 3393 Marvin Avenue. My problem is with handicap. Where I had to park around the corner here to get up the sidewalk with my walker. I'm sorry I don't talk loud.
Fine.
But when there's some place that you need to get into, it's hard to get into. If you never had my condition, arthritis, it's hard. It's hard on your body. If you never had to have to pain in your legs, in your hands and your arms to get somewhere where you need to go, that's hard. And if you don't have help, like I had tonight, you can't get in there. You can't take care of your business, and you can't do what you need to do for yourself. So I just ask that you will lower the sidewalks where it is, where people need to step up and can't, to get into places like this tonight, to get into where you need to go. I'm sorry, I'm emotional, but this condition has taken me where I don't want to be. And it's hard for me to get in and out of places, business places that I need to be, and to go or take care of my business. So that's my concern tonight.
Thank you. Anyone else for public comment?
Good evening. My name is Mary Jo Berry, 533 Maple Street here in Allegan. Actually, Martha took what I was going to say. I was able to visit downtown Allegan this Friday and Saturday. It does look nice down here. I don't really care less about the two-way. A lot of folks are complaining that the two, you know what I mean, over there by, anyways, a lot of folks are complaining by this. Actually, I was asked by one of the businesses, what did I think about the streets? And I just said, well, they're streets. And then she's like, just tell me how you feel. And I said, they're nice looking, but we do need some more handicap spots. Because the ones who are disabled, they have to go to the end of the street to get to a building. You know, like she was talking about, even right out here, it's a nice little step for someone. I don't know if anything can be done because, you know, they're here already, but just something to keep in mind. Again, I'm not really even sure what to say this time. I think we'd have more visitors here at the meeting if people weren't coming to see Mr. Jones, like as a freak show or as a sideshow. It's not. I know it's personal to him. It's probably personal to some of you guys as well, since everyone has to pay that fee. But we know some of them they just don't have it. I don't know how to fix it. I don't know how to find a resolution, but I think we can all start by saying, just whatever and whoever did whoever and whatever was said by anybody, maybe we can take a look back at that and say, hey, maybe we could have said it a different way. Or hey, I don't know how many of you, they're all ganging up on him. There's got to be someone up here, someone on the panel that has some type of resolution that we can get to and get to soon. I can just tell you, he's not going to stop. He's not going to stop visiting. He's not going to stop coming to these meetings. He's not going to stop. I don't know what to do. I don't know what for you guys to do, but I can tell you right now, he is not going to stop. So how do we get around it? How did we get through it? My grandma would say, take it to the Lord, but she was here. And we can still take it to the Lord. Maybe when you say your prayers tonight, you can just put an extra prayer in there to ask the Lord for some answers. Where do we go from here? We're all human beings, and we all deserve to voice our opinions, which you give us that permission to. So thank you.
Thank you, Jody. Anyone else? All right. So now moving down to item 11A, city boards, commissions, and area agencies. 11A1, planning commission, November meeting. I will take this one. Planning commission, we spent time talking about our zoning ordinances and how we're designating our new designations for our zoning ordinance, looking at residential and non-residential and what things can be built by right, and then special use as well. So there's just a lot of intricacies in that, and looking at what we want to have happen, but the repercussions of what some of those decisions could be. So just going through that, looking at the ADUs, the accessory dwelling units as well. And we've also started a discussion about single family conversion units and what's acceptable and what's not acceptable. Let's see, what else? We have some, Lori said we've got something coming up. I guess am I missing anything, Joel or Teresa? I think that's about it.
Nope.
It's a lot
That's
of,
the majority of the
lot of minutia.
conversation.
Yeah, so that was it for planning commission. And that was the only one. So 11B1, request to approve accounts payable. And since Mayor Pro Tem's not here, I guess I'll just take that. So we have accounts payable in the amount of $295,083.10, and payroll in the amount of $121,412.47, for a total disbursement of $416,495.57. I make a motion to approve.
Excuse me. I move we pay the bills.
Great.
Support.
All right, it has been moved and supported. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Motion passes. All right, item 11B2, request to accept a report of the fourth quarter budget adjustments. Joel, Tracy, who's taking that?
So these budget adjustments are just being brought to you. You guys authorized me to make these budget adjustments, so they've already been made. And then these just line up with the audit and the audit adjustments that were made based on the audit from Dan and them. So this is the report showing the balances at the end of fiscal year 2023. And I can answer any specific questions you guys might have.
Anyone have any questions for Tracy regarding this? If not, can I get a motion?
Do we need action on this? I think it's just accepting a report.
Oh, we are just, you're right. Well, do we have to vote on this?
I don't think so.
No, yeah.
so we don't need a motion. All right, then moving on to item 11B3, a request to adopt a resolution 23.32 to approve first quarter budget adjustments.
And on this one, the majority of what happens in the first quarter is bringing over items that needed to be rolled over from fiscal year 2023 over to 2024, in addition to items that have been brought to you guys by department heads and either Joel or I for July through September of this current fiscal year 2024. And if you have specific questions on anything in here, I can answer them.
Any questions for Tracy?
I was told not to ask questions here, and now I'm being, but if you could send me the details, I can't vote yes on this tonight, because it's too much, it's 9.5 million in budget adjustments. I can't make clear for myself what that all amounts to, where all this comes from. So until I can get clarity on all that, and I understand people don't want me to spend the time asking questions here, so I hope I can get the follow-up information, but yeah, I'm good on that for now.
Okay. So is that, if you have questions, you can always email Tracy before the meeting.
Yeah, I've done that before too.
So I mean, I want you comfortable when we're voting, but I mean, it's just hard in the meeting to not give her any time to prepare.
Yeah.
All right, so if there's no more questions, can I get a motion?
I'll make a motion to adopt resolution 23.32.
I'll support.
It has been moved and supported. All in favor, signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, say nay.
Nay.
Motion passes. Item 11B4, request to adopt resolution 23.33 to approve the downtown refuse program rates. Joel?
Thank you, Mayor Byrd. We discussed this during the pre-session, and we've been discussing this program for the past year or so in the downtown, creating a centralized, holistic garbage collection program for our downtown properties. As part of this program, we need to generate revenue to pay for the collection. Earlier this year, you authorized us to construct 6 dumpster enclosures in the downtown. Those are being constructed as we speak. I'm hearing good things about those going up. I appreciate what I'm seeing. And now tonight, we will be approving the fee schedule through this program. In your packet and on the screens behind you, you see the breakdown of the fees. You'll pay a ready-to-serve fee. Every property will be assigned that fee. And then you'll also pay a usage fee depending on the type of use you are. Any questions about this program?
I did see in the staff memo, the annual cost is $33,780, but we're only gonna generate $31,000. Is that just, how are we making up the difference, and how's that gonna play out?
Yeah, so the first estimate we have from Republic, we have not brought this to council for your review, or your approval yet, so we haven't signed the papers yet. As Republic came in at $33,780, Parker Johnson, our downtown manager, and myself will negotiate with Republic to see if we can have them sharpen their pencils a little bit. Based off the initial spreadsheet that we ran, depending on which properties opt out because they are able to provide their own garbage collection per the ordinance that council approved, we believe at the worst would generate about 31,000. At the best, we'd probably be north of 35,000. So any shortcomings you have here will come from the DDA. Right now, the DDA has north of 80,000, I think, in their fund balance. I don't have that paperwork in front of me, but that difference of a few thousand a year is something I'm comfortable with the DDA budget can cover. And again, my own perspective and the perspective of everyone we've talked to through this process, This is a significant beautification project we're undertaking, managing the garbage. So,
Thank you.
you're welcome.
Any other questions?
I am not a fan of the ready-to-serve fee. Just saying.
If there's no more questions, can I get a motion?
I move that we adopt resolution 23.33.
Support.
It has been moved and supported. All in favor, please signal by saying aye. Opposed, nay.
Nay.
Motion passes. Item 11D1, request to accept a report for an emergency purchase for repair work on a 2008 Ford one-ton dump truck and authorize a budget adjustment in the amount of $7,321.16 for this work. Joel?
So the supermajority of our vehicles are new vehicles through a lease program that council approved 2 years ago. We did retain a couple older vehicles that we knew we were gonna need for some projects moving forward. One of these vehicles was the 2008 one-ton dump truck. It was assigned to the DPW, but the water utility staff uses it for their lead service replacement program. They've noticed that the front end steering is getting loose and sloppy. The mechanic that we have isn't able to fix it, so we took it in to Ziegler Ford for repairs. The repair for this is $7,321.16, below the purchasing threshold of the city manager of $10,000. So I told our Doug Swears, go ahead and get it fixed, because I don't want city employees driving vehicles that are unsafe. And this is where Tracy Stahl said, whoa, Joel, this isn't in the budget. We need to go get this amended in the budget. So to answer your question during the study session, Delora, this is one of those instances where staff communicates and we find a way forward. We do need to have this vehicle fixed. We have another 1.5 years of the lead service replacement program that's being funded with Booker funds from the state. So this is a project, that I feel we need to bring to council and have you, or not a project, but a fix. We need to bring to council and have council approve this repair.
So we don't need to approve the repair, we need to approve the budget adjustment.
Budget
correct?
adjustment, yeah.
So if there's any questions about this, if not, can I get a motion?
Make the motion to approve the budget adjustment.
A second?
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor, please signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Item 11E1, request to adopt resolution 23.34 to authorize a bow hunt at Padgham Field Airport for animal control purposes. Joel?
Thank you, Mayor Byrd. Earlier this month, council adopted an ordinance amendment that allowed city council the authority to approve wildlife control hunts in the city. We've been talking now probably for a couple months about the deer population out at the airport. It goes without saying that deers and airplanes don't mix. We have had several people on the airport advisory board talk about this issue. On the screen behind you is a picture that was shared with us middle of this month on the number of deer they saw when they were going out to their hangar in the morning to, get it ready for a Saturday flight. There's probably 5 or so deer on that field right now in that picture. So Mayor Pro Tem Hands emailed Doug Codsman and I and said, hey, I would support putting this on the agenda. If staff could put it on the agenda, staff has the right to put things on the agenda. That's how things make it onto the agenda. And, we are here tonight asking you that you adopt resolution 23.34, authorizing a bow hunt out at the airport. This is the same resolution language that you saw earlier in the month when we tried to approve the emergency ordinance associated with the wildlife control hunt. It will be overseen by Public Works Director Doug Codsman, that only City of Allegan employees can participate in this hunt, that only three employees at a time will be able to hunt on this site, that they have to do it on their off hours, and that they have to use their own equipment, licenses. I think they call them deer tags. I'm not a hunter, but I believe they call them deer tags. They have to use all their own stuff.
All right. Any questions about this?
So if they're using all of their own stuff and there's 5 deer, you're leaving 3. How is this going to solve the problem?
So Councilmember Zeter, I would offer that there's not,
There's more than 5.
there's more than 5. That picture shows 5 deer. There isn't 5 deer that call that home. The deer tags, I believe they get 3 or so, or 2 doe permits and 1 buck permit. I mean, I have friends that hunt and they nab 2 or 3 deer at a time when they go out hunting with their permits. So it's 3 at a time per week. Right now, I think we've identified 7 or 8 City of Allegan employees that said they would be willing to partake in this this hunt.
Any other questions?
I don't necessarily have a question, but this has been a very difficult topic for me personally, just because I have certain feelings about hunting. I was on the airport advisory board for multiple years, and that was many years ago, probably 4 or 5 years ago now. And this was discussed even back then. I had reached out to Joel and Doug Cosbon to just kind of ask some questions, and I don't want the city to be liable if there is an accident with an airplane and a deer. So I know that I've been against this previously, but I will probably be voting for it just to limit that liability if possible, though it hurts to do it.
All right.
I have a comment. DNR is emphatic that they need the population of deers to be reduced. Hunters have stopped. There's not as many hunting. The deer population has grown tremendously, especially in the does. At least in everything that I've read. I don't hunt anymore. I always did, but I do not anymore. But I see no problem with it. That needs to be, and that's the easiest way to do it at this time. They do plan on putting fences up, but that's down the road.
All right. Thanks, Bill.
You're welcome.
Anyone else? All right. Can I get a motion?
Make the motion to adopt resolution 23.34 to authorize a bow hunt.
A second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor, please signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay? Nay. Motion passes. Item 11E2, request to adopt resolution 23.35 to approve the MDOT roundabout contracts. Joel?
Sure. So at your last meeting, you approved this by a voice motion. MDOT has responded to our submission of that voice motion and said all approvals of action with MDOT in the locality or local unit of government has to be done via a resolution. So Michaela went ahead, put the resolution together that's in your packet, and all this does is, through words, verbalizes what you did in a voice motion. Any questions?
If there's no questions for Joel, can I get a motion?
I make a motion to approve.
I'll support.
It's been moved and supported. All in favor, please signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay?
Nay.
Ayes have it. Item 11F1, request to adopt resolution 23.36 to amend the guideline for poverty exemptions. Joel?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. So in your packet is Resolution 2336. What this does is it allows the city to grant poverty exemptions at the 100%, 75%, 50%, and 25% of tax forgiveness. Previously, the state law only allowed you to forgive 100, 50, and 25, but that was recently changed to allow cities to give a 75% exemption based on, one's household income. Talking amongst this with our assessor as well as with city staff here, we felt that it would be appropriate for us to bring this to council. There is a tight turnaround. December 1st, 2023 is when we have to adopt a resolution by. This was just brought to our attention a week ago. So we are acting quick and turning it around quick. It's a staff's opinion that if council was comfortable with 100%, 50, or 25, we're not sure why you wouldn't grant the Board of Review the opportunity to do a 75% one. It's kind of common sense to me.
Any discussion on this?
How often do people seek these exemptions?
Off the top of my head, I believe we get a couple a year where a person is a homeowner and then also is, lives below the poverty line in the city of Allegan. More often than not, we get people that are right above the poverty line that don't qualify, and they don't understand why they don't qualify because, life is hard.
What's the process when people approach us?
So we have an application that people fill out. They have to submit their income documentations. Councilmember Morgan was on the Board of Review before he became a council member and went through that process of reviewing people's assets, income, everything that goes into determine a person's household income.
So we would see those minutes if there was an exemption that came through, we would.
Yeah, so Councilmember Redding, if you're asking to get minutes of the Board of Review, I can supply that to you. I can work with Lindsay.
Is that standard process is my question?
Is what standard process?
If the Board of Review meets and considers a poverty exemption, do we get those minutes like we do for all the other?
You guys do
minutes?
not typically. They meet 2 or 3 times a year, and they are state directed on the work they do. One of their meetings is 14 hours long. You have to be available.
Yeah, and then
12?
you have to be in the evening time twice a day. It's,
Yeah, 2 of the meetings have to be held in the evening time.
it's a long day.
It's a 14-hour meeting, but you're just sitting around for
Pretty much.
5 applications. You have to be available for anyone to walk in.
Any other questions for Joel? Can I get a motion?
I move we adopt resolution 23.36.
Support.
It has been moved and supported. All in favor, please signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Item 11F2, a request to adopt resolution 23.37 to adopt the City of Allegan's wayfinding plan.
Thank you, Mayor Byrd. We discussed the wayfinding plan at your previous meeting. Try not to run afoul where I have council make a voice motion and then the state say they need it in the resolution. I went ahead and put this into a resolution for council's approval. Part of our grant that helped fund this wayfinding plan was that the local unit of government has to formally adopt the wayfinding plan. And we discussed this at your previous meeting. So tonight is just a formality of council passing this resolution, which has you formally adopt the wayfinding plan. You are not committing any funding to this program at this time.
What is it that we are adopting?
Sure. So Resolution 2337 says, whereas the City Council adopted a fiscal year 2024 goal of developing a comprehensive wayfinding signage plan for the Allegan community, and whereas the Michigan Economic Development Corporation approved a grant to pay 75% of the costs to develop the wayfinding signage program, And whereas the City of Allegan contracted with Guide Studio in the amount of $37,000 to develop the wayfinding signage program, and whereas Guide Studio worked with a steering committee, city staff, and members of the community to develop the wayfinding signage program, and now therefore be it resolved that the Allegan City Council has reviewed the plan at their November 13th, 2023 study session, and hereby approves the City of Allegan wayfinding signage plan and directs city staff to submit this resolution to the Michigan Economic Development Corporation per their grant agreement. So you are adopting the resolution which approves the City of Allegan wayfinding signage plan.
So we're just saying we like the direction this is going in. But we're not committing to
Correct.
the,
This is for them to get the grant money?
This is so we can get the final reimbursement of the grant money. Correct.
all right. Any other questions or discussion? Can I get a motion?
I move we adopt Resolution 23.37.
I'll support.
It's been moved and supported. All in favor, signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Item 11F3, request to adopt Resolution 23.38 for recognition of certain employee expenditures as public purpose for the City of Allegan.
So over the past year, we've been working with our city attorney to develop a resolution and language that will more formally authorize and support your annual budget line item for a Christmas party and other events for city employees. As stated in the report, staff retention is a critical part of serving the public who call Allegan home. Without strong staff, it's impossible for us to do our jobs here. Over the course of the past few years, you've encouraged policies to assist in staff retention, such as the 4-day, 10-hour work weeks, years of service awards, employee banquets, et cetera. What this resolution does is it formalizes some of these benefits. And I will point out that in the resolution, it's very clear at the end that the Allegan City Council has determined the use of public funds for the benefits described above serve a public purpose in the City of Allegan, and authorizes the city to expend funds within any adopted budget related to those benefits. Questions?
So this is stuff we're already doing. Why do we need the resolution?
This is stuff we are already doing. Our goal here is to, as it says in there, to kind of formalize that stuff that we're doing. Right now, it's just a line item in the budget, but this makes it more clear on what we can and cannot use those funds for. So we get rid of some of the gray area on how we move forward.
Does this have a policy with it?
So when you read the resolution, you'd see that it lists, the different things that we could use with it. Such expenditures include break room coffee, occasional recognition of achievements or personal milestones, refreshments, meals in conjunction with work outside of ordinary business hours, gifts or tokens of appreciation, and expressions of support and sympathy during difficult circumstances. I would offer that is, clear on what we can use that money for. Questions from other council members?
Can I get a motion?
I'll make the motion to adopt Resolution 23.38.
Second?
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor, please signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, say nay.
Nay.
Motion passes. Item 11F4, request to approve the afternoon closure of City Hall on December 8th, 2023, a staff holiday party. Joel?
Sure. This is similar to what we did previous year or two with the staff holiday party. Friday, December 8th, we have a potluck lunch starting at noon. All council members are invited. A handful of you each year make an effort to show up to thank the staff for the work they put in this previous year. We once again are requesting that we can close City Hall at noon on that day. Therefore, all staff can partake in the entirety of the event. It does spill out into the downtown in the after hours for those that take PTO. But and previously, we'd always have one person had to come back and just manage City Hall for a very slow day. And this way, we don't have an odd person out. Like I said, council did approve this, I think the last 2 years, actually.
Yeah. And Joel and I had a conversation about this last week, too. So any questions or clarifications? Can I get a motion?
I move we have City Hall closed on the afternoon of December 8th.
I'll support.
It has been moved and supported. All in favor, please signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, say nay. Motion passes. Item 11F5, request to approve City Council Rules of Procedure. Joel.
Thank you, Mayor Byrd. Again, this is an item that has been discussed at previous council meetings, the two previous ones, I believe. At the most recent one, there were still some changes that some council members wanted to see changed. We've incorporated those most recent changes, so we are bringing it back to council for your vote this evening. Any questions?
Hearing no questions, can I get a motion?
I'll make the motion to approve the city council rules of procedure.
Support.
It has been moved and supported. All in favor, please signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion passes. All right, item 13, communications from city manager, council, and mayor. Joel, do you have anything?
Just a few things, not to steal Parker Michaela's thunder, but this coming Friday is the Holiday Lights Parade we do downtown. I will be driving the green bus. Please let Michaela know if you will be riding in the bus with me. We have candy already established. So, second thing is this past Saturday, we had the ribbon cutting for the significant completion of the downtown improvement project. Thank you to the council members that were available and were able to make it out for that ribbon cutting. I thought we had an amazing turnout from the public for that event. And throughout the day, I only heard really good things from the store owners on what that day meant to them. So thank you for being, an active participant in the community with that.
Parker, anything from you?
Yeah, just to add on to what Joel said, Festive Fridays kicks off this Friday with the parade and continues every Friday until Christmas. Between now and our next council meeting, obviously we'll have the parade, and then the second Friday is also Art Hop. That's an event that's organized by the Allegan Area Arts Council. We're looking forward to that on the second Friday. And then the free movies at the Regent Theater also kick off in conjunction with Festive Fridays. We've got, it's Rudolph's Shiny New Year this week, and next week is a Charlie Brown Christmas. So, yep. And each of those, the first one's sponsored by Lambda Gunsmithing on the Riverfront Park, and then the second, the Charlie Brown Christmas is sponsored by Beyond Bones. And then I walked around to each of you before the meeting with a little reminder. Mark Heather was here earlier. The Griswold Auditorium is going to be host to a showing of It's a Wonderful Life. It's a benefit screening of the movie for Wings of Hope Hospice. And the way it's been described to me, it is Rocky Horror Picture Show-esque, where it will be an interactive viewing of the movie with sing-alongs. Santa Claus will be in the audience, but for It's a Wonderful Life, so it should be a good time.
Nice. Thanks, Parker.
Yeah.
Michaela, anything?
Nothing from me, thank you.
Tracy, anything from you?
I would just like to say thank you guys for listening to all the boring finance stuff tonight, but I feel like everything went good with all the projects and that we had. The other thing I wanted to say, my husband just clarified that you can get $2, 10 does, or 12 does. You can get that many tags per year, so I just thought I would share.
Thank you, Tracy. Teresa, anything from you?
I do not have anything. Thank you, Reg.
Delora?
Nothing to that.
Bill?
No,
Dave?
Updates on the trestle bridge.
Sure, yeah, so we have reached out to two engineering firms to give us a second opinion, as we discussed at the previous meeting. We are going with one that is around $400, the other one is $4,000. It is Scott Engineering again. They, they're probably less because they have the pictures, they know their thing, but they understand we're looking at it through the lens of pedestrian access. I only had 2 seconds to look at that paragraph, but I've already emailed Doug Hodsman to say, let's pull that report back out. And so we'll probably have something for you at your next meeting for discussion.
Are we gonna be seeing quotes for fixing the bridge?
No, that was not the direction. The direction was to reevaluate, is the bridge in its current condition safe for, you're talking about the Trestle Trail Bridge, correct?
Right.
Yeah. At the last meeting, council discussed selecting having staff get another engineering quote to a second opinion on if it's safe for pedestrian use. We've already received quotes. That's where we came up with a number that ranges from 800 to 1.2 million, 800,000 to 1.2 million to
That was
replace it.
For the replacement, I remember at the last discussion, we were gonna look at repairing too.
We had discussed like getting quotes for we can open it to pedestrian traffic if there was some sort of repairs that
Yeah.
needed to be done. But, yeah,
Yeah.
so maybe after the second opinion, whether it can be open or not, if there's repairs that need to happen before it
Yeah.
can be open.
Well, we can go ahead and, the repairs would be replacing all the pilings. And so if you're replacing the pilings, we can talk to the engineers about that. Because I don't know why you just want to replace the deck while you're at it. But we'll talk to the engineer about that.
I remember them talking about concrete, like there was something they could do with concrete, but like over the posts.
Okay.
Anything else, Dave?
Yeah, so I was struck by Mary Jo Berry's comments at the last meeting and just, the idea of how do we resolve these types of conflicts as a community? I'm wondering, is anybody else on council like open to that kind of discussion at this point? I know it's been a hard path, but are there others who have thoughts on that?
I'd be open to being in a conversation to see what we could do. I don't know where else we're gonna go, because I feel like the question's been asked and answered, but I'm willing to have a conversation.
Okay. Well, I guess another thing I want to just acknowledge to Mary Jo, there was several meetings back where you would come up for comment after others had been up for comment and they were interacted with and you didn't get an interaction. And I don't believe there was intentional malice in that, but I think there was an ignorance in how that would impact you personally. And I'm sorry for that and the offense that it caused for you and the hurt it likely caused. And that's something I wanted to just acknowledge and take responsibility from this seat for.
I appreciate that. You're gonna make me cry.
You're very welcome.
Thank you.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate your comments at the last meeting as well. That's it for me, thanks.
Thanks, Dave. Mike, anything from you? No. So, just building off what Joel and Parker just talked about with Saturday, what an amazing turnout. I thought we were gonna have, 20 or 30 people, and we just had a ton of people. And I know just from a proprietor's standpoint, Saturday was the biggest day Beyond Bones has ever had, by far. So it was great to have people out back downtown. Yeah, it was good. And everyone be careful driving home, because it looks like it's snowing pretty good. So if there's nothing else, I will adjourn the meeting at 7:54.